Hi everyone. Natalie here again, and I'm just back to do another quick video, or maybe even a not so quick video. Who knows? We don't know. Um, just to share some of my experience with tarot, um, and different spiritual systems, and just some fun, interesting like rediscoveries I've made. So, since nobody knows me in the tarot community on YouTube yet, except for where I've popped up in various people's um, live streams, I think I've loved Cape Cod Creatures live streams, and Jen from I'm blanking, Willow Wind, the Thrifty Witch. I've been on her channel a bit. I've commented on loads of people's channels. And in fact, the reason I'm even here is because I was so inspired by a lot of you, actually, and just the different perspectives that you have on tarot and different spiritual systems and backgrounds. I just found that really exciting, and thought, wow, this looks like a group of folks I really would love to play with. So, um, thank you. You've all done a great deal to inspire me into wanting to come out and play. And then Matt from Conjurer's Table was like, "Hey, you should totally make videos. You should totally get out there and be part of the group." So here I am. And I'm having to get used to um, talking on video, which I find weird, and seeing myself on video, which is also weird as it's happening. Once I'm like editing it, I'm like, oh, that's that person, and I don't really, I don't associate it with myself so much. Anyway, moving on. So I don't know what order I will have uploaded things in. Um, a little bit about my tarot background. I am 43, and I started reading tarot when I was 19. Um, I I read in college for a while. Um, I was very Christian at the time, so I really had to struggle with like, oh, what does this mean? Um, does it mean I'm not a good Christian? Does it mean I don't know. I struggled with it. I had a really, really good friend who read tarot, who was of Puerto Rican background. And so she helped me a lot and introduced me to the cards and the card systems. Um, and she also was raised with a lot of superstitions. You have to be given your first deck, you have to. Can only be stored in silk. You can only, you have to charge it at every full moon or it won't work properly. I mean, there were a lot of different superstitions that came along with her background and the way that she was introduced to those systems as well. And it didn't take me very long, frankly, just to ditch a lot of that because I don't know, it wasn't convenient. And then, like, the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, well, is that even really true? Does that, if it is true, you know, I debunked a lot of it for myself very quickly, and started exploring tarot. And then I worked for a little local metaphysical shop in near St. Louis, Missouri, not in St. Louis. Um, if you happen to be local to the area where I live, it would be, it was in St. Charles, Missouri, actually, called the Enchanted Attic. And so I worked there for several years, it felt like it was a lot longer than it really was. Things go by very slowly in your 20s, don't they? I think I really only worked there probably for 18 months, maybe. But during that time period, it doesn't, not that it matters, but during that time period, I collected tons of decks, and I had full access. This is pre-internet. We're talking about, mid to late 90s. I had access to the full Llewellyn and US Games catalogs. Um, so I could really just order whatever I wanted, through the shop, and it would get delivered. So I collected tarot. This is going back a while, really, now that I think about it, because like we've gone so far with the internet and everything. But when I started, we there were like lots of AOL chat groups, and I discovered something called the American Tarot Association, and I've been meaning to look them up to see if they still exist. I don't even know, but I remember I even got certified through them and whatever. And I just read for anybody I possibly could and studied and studied and studied and studied. And I probably collected, I don't know, 30 to 50, realistically, 30 to 50 different tarot and oracle decks. Who knows how many different books. And, when I got reinterested in really, I never completely lost interest. I mean, I quit tarot like, how long am I running here? Ooh, this is going on. I started probably, I guess, stopping reading tarot. Um, Realistically, probably not till about 10 years ago. Let's say 10 years ago, give or take. And at about that time, I also converted to Buddhism. And so, obviously, a lot of things happened in between that allowed for that to be the case. But yeah, long story short, I gave up the tarot at some point, and I do remember donating a huge number of my decks, like in the late 90s, maybe before I moved to England, because I moved to London in 1998. And I think I donated probably 10 or 15 decks at that time to women in prison. So it was like a prison tarot, or maybe it wasn't women, it's just prison tarot project. And then I think the remaining decks, I maybe just donated or found another like similar. Basically, anytime somebody tells me that there are people in prison who don't have books, I immediately start clearing my shelves, because I'm the idea of being in a prison and not having access to books is something that I just can't imagine. So it does tend to make me feel really generous. Um, I just have a lot of feeling for it. I could go on for a long time. Anyway, suffice it to say, I know that I've ditched a lot of books and cards over the years, and thankfully a lot of my stuff, has gone to a good home, because it ended up in the hands, hopefully, of people that really, they've got to have something, honestly, something. So anyway, when I came back to looking at it again, it was like, well, what do I even have left? Surely I can find my two standby decks, right? The two decks that I love more than any other decks, that were like my go-to decks, that I loved even more than the Carrie Yale Visconti deck, which I had, it's big. And I used to read from that sucker for years. And I did, paid readings and professional readings with it and everything. And I guess I should say I quit reading tarot professionally. I read for myself for a very long time, but I quit reading tarot professionally, really, I guess, like in my late 20s. I got interested in mediumship, and it had always been a part of my tarot readings that stuff would come in and come through, which I'm really a lot less interested in anymore, in truth. Again, a topic for another time, probably. If people really want to know more about that, I can absolutely go into it. But anyway, the tarot became a distraction from having dialogue with spirit and having things come through. So I spent more time looking into mediumship, and then I quit mediumship as well. again, I can go into that in greater detail later if anybody cares. I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't care. Maybe you're fascinated. Who knows? We'll find out. But when I went back to see what I had left, I literally only had this one copy of the Zerner Farber Tarot, which is ironic because when I started doing artwork in my, I guess, mid 30s, hasn't been that long ago. I started doing, fiber work, and of course, Amy, I guess it's Amy Zerner and Monty Farber. I think that's the right. I may have it wrong. Who knows? I realized that like the other day I recorded a video, like afterwards I'd gotten loads of things wrong. So who knows? Like I said, the whole medium for me is taking some getting used to. But what's really funny, like the price tag is still on the deck. Now this is a definite like Amazon price tag, but I remember, in the 90s, that was a normal price tag, right? And I think the box was like just sitting on the shelf, US Games, etc. And the deck was like saran wrapped inside. So it's a pretty much borderless deck. It's gorgeous. I love this deck. I never used it. I really never used it. And I even looked at it recently and was like, do I want to use this deck? And I thought, no, I don't think I'll use this deck. It's very loud. I am in love with the Fool from this deck. I am so not good with cameras yet. Okay, here we go. I do love that. Everything about this Fool card makes my heart sing. I don't know. Just wanted to throw that out there. So there's that one. Put him back in. And the other thing that I had left was whenever Kim Krantz came out, of course, with the Wild Unknown Tarot, I saw it it was everywhere. So, and it completely sucked me in and drew me in the way it did pretty much everybody. And so I did order a deck, online. I think this is a first edition. I've never read with it. It would never have occurred to me to save a tarot deck because of value of first editions and things like that. Then I saw someone did a second edition, like the commercial one that's out, or whatever edition. It's probably the 50th edition now by this point. I think it's actually only the fourth. And that's an unnecessary exaggeration. But I immediately was like, oh, maybe I want to get another one, which I'm going to have to really watch as I'm rebuilding my tarot deck collection and study implements and so forth. I don't want to acquire so much stuff. It's hard, but I have North Node in Scorpio for those of you who are into astrology. Acquiring stuff is not good if you have that astrological placement. You want to avoid it. So I really try hard not to do that. Anyhow, so with only these two decks, and I could not locate my old ones, which were still in very good condition, I thought, well, I've got to have something. I had a universal weight deck, and I had the Osho Zen Tarot. And really, I used the Osho Zen Tarot primarily for myself, and I never read for myself with the universal weight deck. At the time, I think you could really only get universal weight and Rider weight. I mean, there weren't so many different decks out, or if there were, they weren't, in St. Louis, you had two choices. You either had the really ugly, original Rider weight, or you could get the universal weight, which was much brighter and prettier, and it had these beautiful stars on the back, which I loved. And so I went to go get one, and it was not on any of the shelves in my independent bookstores. It wasn't on the shelves at Barnes and Noble. There were feels like dozens of different types of Rider weight style, or Pamela Smith, thank you. or Pamela Coleman Smith decks that were out on the shelves, but none of them were the universal weight. So I just kind of thought, I've gotta, I think I settled at one point because I was like, whoa, what's a Lenormand or Lenormand deck? Um, but I recognized Pixie, and then you could open it up and whoop, you could see that, it's in this fun little tin. And, I could tell instantly, like looking at these cards, oh, that's Pamela Coleman Smith. I got to have those. So I got them right away because they just felt so comforting and they felt like home. So I got those. And then I've realized I probably don't generally want to read Lenormand decks. Not into fortune telling. I'm into insight. I'm into reflection. I'm into being able to see, situations and relationships and influences much more clearly because I have this profound need to understand everything. And I don't just mean I mean like everything. it's a lifelong process, obviously, but yeah, fortune telling, not so much. But anyway, in my search for well, okay, if I'm going to get, one of these, then which one, what do I want to get? And I ended up with this Smith Waite Tarot Centennial Edition, and I'm in love with it. And I thought, well, this will do until I get, the one I really want. I don't really want it. I don't really need it. I don't need another universal weight deck. I loved it for the time I had it. If it ever reappears because it's somewhere I haven't looked yet in someone's house that I stored things in over the years, then I'll happily take it back. But this deck in the meantime, I just love. I love the slightly more antique look. Borders on cards are not something that really affects me or bothers me or affects my reading. Never really has. I don't know. I love everything about these. And of course, the more that I have learned about Pamela Coleman Smith and her life and, connections. We both worked in theater. She, I think went on to do set design, and I don't know. My heart is with her. I love her. And I am a big, Smith Waite. I love that system. It's a really good system. I mean, I don't think I recognized when my first time around with tarot, like, oh, that's, all of these different decks are hers. They're essentially what she came up with, but, or I guess she and Waite came up with it together or something, but their point being simply that I just didn't see that. The other system I really loved was the Tarot de Marseille. Loved I still do, Tarot de Marseille sets. And that system, I learned to read with that quickly. I like pip decks, which led me, interestingly, to pick up the Thoth deck, or Thoth, or Tot, however anybody wants to say it. I have no real thing about it, although it would seem that you're supposed to say Aleister Crowley, not Crowley, apparently. I do have family members that pronounce their name Crowley. I guess that's a preference. But anyway, this is, I've always loved the backs of these cards. I did not get a deck. Is this not stupid? So, superstition time. I did not pick up one of these marvelous, gorgeous decks my whole life because I got told by somebody that the energy was bad. And I remember I accidentally ended up getting read by somebody who was using these cards. And I remember when she went and was like laying them out, I was looking at them going, wow, what a beautiful deck of cards. I love that. In part, why I loved it, let me see if I can find one of these gorgeous pips. Oh, they're so beautiful. There's like, oh, the cups. Like, look at that. I mean, what? how is that bad? You know, how is that a bad energy? I don't know. I was just silly. I don't know. I think, I don't know. I did a lot of silly things. I was a very silly girl, and the interwebs didn't exist yet, really, in the way that it does now, anyway. But I remember Reader was reading for me with this deck, and I was astounded because I liked her. I liked her energy. I liked the energy of that deck, and I thought, why did I? Anyhow, and I think, as I recall, it made me suspicious of her at the time. I don't know. People are funny. I was funny, but we changed, thankfully. And then, oh yes. So I did realize I couldn't live really without getting a new copy of the Osho Zen Tarot because I loved that card deck so much. And I grew so much in the time that I used it that even if I don't use it the same way, or I find that all these years later it's not going to be the right deck for me, look at the back of that. That is just so exquisite. The brushwork, the colors, I love the circles, but then it's so different from like the actual deck. This really, now that I know more, now that I'm older, wiser, etc., this bugs me. And in fact, I just received this deck and I just opened it right before I started this video. And I have to say, now that I know, if you haven't watched, I'm interrupting myself. I'm so excited to have people to talk to. Now that I've watched Wild Wild Country, I think that's what it's called, or it's just Wild Country. It's on Netflix. It is a documentary series about, basically about the cult of Osho. And at the time his name was, something else completely different that entirely escapes me. I'm sure you're probably watching this screaming it out. I often do that on videos. Put on the spot, sometimes I just don't remember things. But if you haven't watched it, it's a really insightful, interesting watch. I actually have a Dharma friend in the Buddhist community that I'm now a part of, which has its roots in a couple of Tibetan lineages. And she is a former member of that cult. And it's, again, maybe just another video, but fascinating, really fascinating. This deck was not created by Osho. It was created by one of his followers, not St. Martin's Press. Let's see, where do we find? Oh, yeah, Mahadeva Padma. So, and she did an incredible job. But of course, like, she's going to attribute everything to Osho and so on. Now that I know what I know, now that I've had my own experiences with really dodgy gurus and really dodgy spiritual teachers, I'm not seeing this the same way that I once did. And there are things that immediately were like, what am I looking at here? And I've got to do some thinking. I've got to do some reassessing. Interesting. So there may be another video coming out where I talk about that. I don't know. But I had to get it because it's like, whoa, that was like this was the comfort deck. If I didn't know what was happening in my life, I felt safe going to this deck and sitting down and reading for myself and listening to, the forces that be, and really taking the advice to heart and finding a way to move forward. So there's that. I don't know if I will have released it yet or if this will come first, but I also just got this deck, this Tree Spirit Oracle deck, and I have to say I'm so excited. I love this deck. It's so beautiful. The cards are beautiful. They're simple. The symbols are simple, and yet the meanings of them are so deep. And yeah, this is a card. It was expensive. This one, I'll open it. Why not? I have another video about it. If you don't, you can always fast forward. It's YouTube. They're small. relatively speaking. Like here they are. When I first took them out, they were a little bent, like all in the same direction. And I just sat with them the other night while I was watching a video. And I just smoothed the cards and I handled each one of them individually and extensively and really felt into them. And that's kind of how I've been like relating with them. I love trees. I love trees. I'm actually not at my house right now. I'm at my family's house, my mom and dad's, because I'm house sitting their cat, Sherlock. And he's a stinker in more ways than one. Anyway, the trees, they live in the woods. There are trees here everywhere. In fact, out that window back there is my tiny house that I built. So maybe another video on that one too, although tiny houses are everywhere and all over the place at the moment and frequently not being built by the people who actually intend to live in them. But anyhow, trees. Love trees. Love these cards. They're very simple. Lots of different colors. I don't know. They're oh, look at that. They're marvelous. And anything that's going to bring me closer to tree spirits and tree energy and trees is something I love. Okay. This is getting to be a long video. It was not what I intended. All right, but we're going to move on. Finally, I did get myself a copy of, and I haven't opened it yet. I've been meaning to for a while. But I got a copy of the Tarot de Maria Celia. I wanted to get a Marseille deck to work with, and I actually also I got sucked in. We all get sucked in, don't we? I am getting a copy of the Marshmallow Marseille Tarot. I can't help it. It's so pretty, and so the moon card in that deck just completely caught me. It's so beautiful. Anyway, it's a video. It's a YouTube. Maybe I should open this now. I don't really have anything to open it with. Oh, here we go. Okay, plastic's shifting. I got this at my local metaphysical store. It's called Mystic Valley, and here in St. Louis. So, ooh, here we go. It's in a tin. It's in a tin that's oddly, it's the same size. I guess it's not odd. They're probably produced both. Yeah, are they? Are they both U.S. games? Yep. Well, anyway, U.S. Games is what it is. We love it. If it weren't for U.S. Games, I would never have been introduced. So beautiful little book. It says all the things we already know. Oh, they're so cute. It's so sweet. Let's see. Sorry, that's really not very ladylike or particularly civilized, but there we are. I really want to open these cards. And I have no excuse. I think Holly's the one that said I'm on Cape Cod Creatures. Well, it's probably because I wasn't raised right. I was raised right. I should know better. But then I also probably shouldn't should myself. Don't should yourself. Okay. Here we go. Wow. They're so pretty. They're so sweet. The faces are so interesting. I know, like, they just had like a little sample of these in the store, like, that you could look at and open. Ooh, here it is. That's marvelous. I really love death cards. Like, I really, really love death cards. Interesting though, I'm sure a million people have commented on this already, and I'm super late to this game, and that's okay. Um, but it's fascinating. You get like Hanged Man number 12, right? Then Death card with nothing, followed by Temperance. Funny. I'm sure that's to do with some kind of, it's paying homage to some kind of superstition, or I don't know. Oh, the pips are stunning. Wow. Oh my God, they're just so beautiful. They're all out of order too. How fun. Um, which will make shuffling a lot easier, I suppose. And the Fools at the last. It's so interesting. Okay, I've always loved that. I've always loved that that's the first club. There's an Ace of Cups. Wow, Pentacles, rah, rah, rah. Wow, so beautiful. Mindful Tarot was talking about, when you're looking at pip cards like this, reading the progress, reading the progression of, what's happening in the center of the card, so what's there. And I thought, well, yeah, I'd never considered like that might be, that was how that's working. I just remember like when I used to read and I would always read for other people with pip decks, not for myself. I needed something more specific for myself in order not to be, completely, thrown off and kind of going, but what does that mean? And, wrapped up in my own head. But when I was reading for other people, the simplicity of something like this, I mean, my intuition just would run riot. And I had a great time. Like, that's very telling right there. Yeah, Four of Pentacles. I mean, it's marvelous. Yeah, Five of Swords. Anyhow, yeah, watching those progressions and seeing how those develop and that to me is a lot more interesting to learn it, and learning to read a very pippy deck. I find that those are great with clients, and I can see, the signposts that really stand out are always going to be major arcana. And then, the minors are there to really give you the developmental detail and information you need, at least in my memory. So I also found it, and this is too long of a video, and I'm already struggling to upload these, but I did find somehow, I thought this was just a book, and sadly it's got damage on it, but I really do like Liz Green as an author of astrology books and so on. And when I saw that I had somehow, I don't know, in my like throw out all your tarot decks, you don't need them anymore kind of moment, where I really didn't want to seek. I guess the thing is, I was looking to seek things inside rather than going outside for the information. So I closed off, done taking things in. Now I just need to see what's already in here and learn to understand that better. And interestingly, because tarot had already gone in so deeply, a lot of times I would sit in meditation and be like, wow, this is obviously like, this is really this is the tower. This is the tower. This is the tower, and this is death. And this is, archetype. This is this archetype or that archetype. Fascinating. Really, really fascinating. And one thing that always stuck with me throughout all of that journey, we'll go through this another time. Really cool to find, though, that I still had that. I just found it today. Just digging through, was like, wait, that's not a book, that's a deck and book set. Yay. What's in there? Even though it's an oracle deck, but it's an astrological one too. Yeah, I think just coming back to, the Fool as an archetype was always something that stuck with me through Zen and through, all of that journey, and is part of what brought me back to the tarot again. So I'm sure there will be plenty more to share. I think this is probably not my last recorded video for today. So if you see me wearing the same outfit with earrings, which are kind of a giveaway, distinctive characteristic there, you'll know it was filmed the same day. How fun. But I think that's enough for this one. Talk to you guys later.